I'm Sean Fennessey.
I'm Amanda Dobbins.
And this is The Big Picture, a conversation show about Beetlejuice Beetlejuice. I won't be saying it a third time. Today on the show, we're discussing the sequel to Tim Burton's 1988 horror comedy classic. We're also picking our 5 favorite Burton movies and discussing his legacy as a filmmaker. Joining us, Van Lathan. Hello.
What's up, guys?
Thank you for being here.
Maybe we should say it 3 times.
You want to say it?
Well, I'm just, I think the spirit of this conversation is going to be that Beetlejuice himself.
You want to conjure him?
Yeah, because we have a great time when he's around.
That's true. So maybe you can say it.
I don't want to do it.
You don't want to do it?
Because I've never, all the stuff that you could do, like back in the day, like say Bloody Mary in the mirror and like say Candyman's name.
Yeah.
I was always, because I would be the one person that would do it and then it would actually happen. That's how I always looked at it. People would be like, go into the thing and do Bloody Mary. I was like, you go do it. I'm not doing any of that stuff. So I feel like I could say Beetlejuice and then later on tonight, Beetlejuice will show up.
We 3 saw Beetlejuice, just the 2 times together. And you did like gasp when a character said it 3 times.
Yeah.
you were literally like, oh no, I can't believe you did that. And I was like, we are like actually here to watch the character of Beetlejuice appear,
We wanted to see him.
Yeah.
You
What's
were
his
afraid.
name said it, and I was like, you fucking idiot.
you really did actually do that.
Right.
I think Beetlejuice might be the first time I had that sensation that you're talking about, where you became aware of that kind of like mythology that you're not supposed to be reciting in your own house.
Yeah.
It's a pretty huge movie. We talked about it last week on the Michael Keaton Mount Rushmore.
Sure.
Again,
and
people are just loving it. They just, that construction,
that
Mount Rushmore.
That was positive.
So much positive feedback on that. Thanks to all the listeners for being super cool.
Do you know about this, Van?
I do not.
So, Sean came up with the general Mount Rushmore concept. Well, I guess Mount Rushmore did, and then Bill, and then Sean.
The mountain.
Sure, right, yes.
The
Who
Dakotas.
invented Mount Rushmore?
Well, Bill has been citing Mount Rushmores, but I'm not sure he invented the idea of the 4 most significant figures in something as a concept.
Who was like, let's carve it into this mountain?
What did the actual
His name is Jim Rushmore.
Okay.
And he lived in that mountain. And one day he thought, I will begin carving.
Okay.
Who shall I carve?
Right.
Are you bullshitting right now?
I am bullshitting. Yes.
I was about to say Jim Rushmore.
Yeah, pretty good.
Okay, so like a top 4.
Okay.
And then Bobby threw in a curveball, which was that you need to decide which of the 4 corresponds to which president on Mount Rushmore.
Right. So we went through Michael Keaton's whole career, and then we picked the 4 movies that were the most like Washington or Roosevelt.
Yeah, necessitates both like a knowledge of which 4 presidents are on Mount Rushmore. Which
I don't think I could tell you right now.
Well, I had a hard time the first time as well. Guess.
Washington, Roosevelt, Jefferson.
Yeah.
Lincoln?
Correct.
Okay,
there you go. Yeah.
So we chose Beetlejuice for Jefferson, I believe. Is that right?
I don't remember. Maybe also Roosevelt.
Bob, can you check us on this?
Because everyone's understandings of what those 4 presidents mean to history in America is lacking, I would say.
Yeah. Yeah.
So then the people on the internet really love our history.
They love.
They think we're not good at
it. Right.
But that's okay. Yeah. Nevertheless, Beetlejuice. What does that movie mean to you? And what were you thinking going into this new one?
First, I was very jazzed because it represents 2 things. Number one, the continuation of a story that I absolutely loved as a kid. Like Beetlejuice was so funny, so amazing. I remember Michael Keaton in the Batman movie when he goes, "You want to get nuts? Come on." And when he does the come on, I'm like, oh, that's Beetlejuice that just popped out of Michael Keaton right there. I loved it. And it also is very important to the Michael Keaton resurgence that we've seen, I guess, since Birdman. I mean, he was always around, but he really came back strong. And it's been so good to see him back. So this movie coming back is kind of indicative of that too. So I was very excited to see it.
It's like the capstone to this 10-year run that he's had, because Birdman was 2014. He had Spotlight. We talked about this kind of latter half. Obviously he was the Vulture in the Spider-Man movies. It's been pretty much ever present in our lives. This feels like the culmination of that 3rd wave of Keaton.
Sort of, but really of the comeback.
Yeah. So you talked a little bit about Beetlejuice. You like Beetlejuice. You've been mocking my anticipation for this film for months.
Yeah. And just, again, to make sure Van's up to date.
Okay.
This is because when Sean went to CinemaCon, which is Sean's version of Comic-Con, in Las Vegas.
Yeah. That's a good description.
He sent me and Chris a lot of texts being like, The word on the ground is Beetlejuice is back. Is that tracking with what you're hearing? It was like some of the most preposterous times. I mean, thank you.
No,
that was the correct
no,
response.
it was
The word on the ground.
It's just
Beetlejuice.
And he was literally like, does this track with what you guys are hearing? And this is like April and, you know, at like 4 p.m. And Chris and I are just, you know, trying to get through the day. So yeah, we've been making fun of him and his hype meter. But the truth is, people are really anticipating this. It's tracking like incredibly
very high.
Very high. It opened the Venice Film Festival, which was really me getting some of my own karma back.
An astounding 4-minute standing ovation.
No. I think it was 3.
3 minutes. Jeez, Louise.
Wow.
Yeah, which is like being spit in the face.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, I was hyping up
It is.
the way that the studios were talking about this movie, which they thought it would be a big hit when I was at that event. Personally, you know, I have a complicated relationship to legacy sequels like this. We did talk about Top Gun Maverick being a good example of something like this. It's hard, though, one, just for the actors to be alive this many years later. The fact that most of the cast is around and available to reprise their roles. Also, the filmmaker is back for this. That's also something that doesn't usually happen when we make another movie like this. You know, famously, Tony Scott was not alive when Top Gun Maverick was made.
Yeah.
So I love Tim Burton in theory, although I have not loved a movie of his for a long time. I was very tentative about this movie. I don't think my expectations were super high, despite liking what I saw out of the trailers. You were excited?
Yeah. So when you're growing up in the age that I am, Tim Burton is the first director that's like, oh, I see his movie. I know he did it. He's the first quirky guy with a style.
I was just talking to someone about this. He's the person who basically made you understand auteur theory.
Right.
Because you're like, he has a look, a feel,
There's a
things
whole
he's
world.
interested in.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. And like you see like Pee-wee's Big Adventure and you're like, oh my God, that movie is a little odd, right? And then you see Batman and then you see Beetlejuice and you go, oh, that guy makes movies like that. So that's very, very important to be able to identify that. Like he's like, especially if you really love film, he's very important to your development and how you look. And then you start saying, oh, I can see when Michael Mann makes a movie. I can see when Spielberg makes a movie. You start to be able to like notice that. So just to see him back and doing something that I was interested in was very important because I completely punted on Tim Burton for a while now. I will get a lot more into it. But also like, Beetlejuice is one of those weird one-offs where you wonder why they haven't come back to it before now. It was a movie that like was super interesting. Think of the premise of the movie. A newly dead couple figuring out the afterlife. It's just like super intoxicating, especially around that time. And they didn't do anything else with it. Everybody went on to have great careers and they never came back to it. And seeing them do it now, I just wanted to see what they were going to cook up.
Yeah, I think it's specifically the idea of the world building of what the afterlife is, and the idea of it as a bureaucracy and all of these moving parts. Right. You know, that's like a 100 hour and 40-minute movie, and it packs in a lot of information into it. They did try to make a version of this movie many times. There were particularly 2 versions of a Beetlejuice sequel that were in development for a long time. The first was called Beetlejuice in Love, which started as early as 1990. Never quite got off the ground.
But that's interesting information for what we're about to discuss.
It is. The second was called, I think, Beetlejuice Goes to Hawaii, which was meant to be like a surf movie from the 50s, but with Beetlejuice. And it would be this idea of the German expressionism clashing with the surf movie. Those 2 movies never really came to fruition. They went back to Beetlejuice Goes to Hawaii like 10 or 15 years later and looked at it. Cut to 2011, Seth Grahame-Smith, who, you know, worked on Abraham Lincoln Vampire Hunter. Is that what it's called? I can't even remember if that was the name of the movie.
I'm going to be honest with you.
He wrote
you don't hate to hear this.
Tim Burton's Dark Shadows. He started working on a second Beetlejuice movie.
You're going to hate to hear this.
What?
I fucking love that
No, that
shit.
movie's terrible. In fact,
I fucking love Sean. I fucking love that dumbass shit.
Let me bring it full circle.
that dumb.
I like that guy.
I love that dumbass.
What happened
movie.
to that guy?
Benjamin Walker. I know. I was literally just Googling Benjamin Walker. Where are you now?
Yeah.
So I edited a review of that movie written for Grantland.com, written by her husband, Zach Barron. And I had to convince him to go see the movie because he doesn't love horror. And I was like, I think this movie might be a thing. Lo and behold, his skepticism was proven right. It was not a thing until this very moment when you tried to reclaim it for the culture. We will not be reclaiming that movie.
He's apparently on the Rings of Power.
Oh, good for him.
Oh, good for
That's
him.
great.
He plays the High King of the Noldoran Elves, Irinion
Just throwing so much shade with the way you read that.
I wanted to get it right, man. You guys know about that?
Before
who is Gil-galad?
I have no fucking clue.
Gil-galad?
Keep trying. Keep going. Before you arrived at the movie theater last night, Van and I were sitting together watching trailers, and the trailer for Lord of the Rings: The War of the for the Rohirrim came on. Van had no idea what it was.
Yeah.
And then I was like, this is going to be cool. He's going to get to see that there's a new Lord of the Rings movie, albeit animated. And then you just blanked me. You were like, I'm not interested in this.
I don't have. It's a blind spot.
I don't do it either.
Yeah, like Joe's gonna hate this. She hates the way I throw a little shade. Joe is my lore mom. She's my lore queen.
Yeah.
So I go to Joe for all of this stuff, but like Lord of the Rings is a blind spot. I don't care.
I'm with you. And I think that's okay.
Yeah.
It's like people have their worlds that they're into, but the hobbits, they sing, I don't know, tree people. I just,
Stuff.
Both of those
anyway,
things are
that's
great.
where Benjamin Walker is.
Anyhow, Seth Grahame-Smith, who wrote Dark Shadows, started working on a story that eventually became this movie. More screenwriters came in. And so we have Beetlejuice. Amanda, what did you think of the movie?
I had a nice time. As I said to Van when the lights went up, that was a lot. Mm-hmm. There's a lot that they crammed in there, and it seems like they crammed in Beetlejuice in love. Not Hawaii, which is sad. Maybe I would have liked that. But every single reference, every single plot line that has maybe been tossed around in a text message in the last 36 years. And not all of it was necessary, and it felt overstuffed at time. But listen, like I was giggling, you guys were giggling. I couldn't see you, Sean, but I could hear you laughing like a lot. So I've had way worse times in the movies this year,
especially with movies like this. How'd you feel similarly?
Yeah, I've never been in a movie, or haven't been in a movie for a long time, that was that close to sucking that ended up being good.
Yeah,
like it was really right on the cusp of like, well, what the hell, man? And then it flipped, and the movie became like one of the most fun times that I had. But it was bogged down. There were 3 or 4 storylines going at the same time. Some stuff didn't make any sense. And there's actually, the movie is good. Like I had a fun time. But there's actually like a great movie in there.
Yes.
Which is kind of a frustrating thing.
You said that right after the screening, and that's kind of how I feel. I think this is a pretty mixed bag. And the things that you think are going to be good in this movie are clearly good. Michael Keaton, for example, as Beetlejuice. Every time he shows up in the movie comes to life, which I guess is ironic since he is a bioexorcist. But I totally agree with Amanda. There's a lot of characters in this movie, and there's not as much editing. There could have been some pruning.
A lot of actors that I like as well.
Great. I mean, it's a great cast. It's, reprising their roles, Michael Keaton, Winona Ryder, Catherine O'Hara. Plus, you've also got this new big young star, Jenna Ortega. She's got her own storyline. Mm-hmm. You've got Justin Theroux. He's got a big storyline. Monica Bellucci shows up. She's got a storyline. Willem Dafoe shows up. He's got a storyline.
Well, does he? But whatever. He's there.
It's always nice to see Willem Dafoe, but his character is one that probably could have been excised.
But he doesn't have a storyline. Yes. But I'm happy that he's there.
I've never seen him that way before.
You giggled that way.
He's funny.
He is funny.
So
but like he's funny.
Yeah,
I tried to think when I got home, what's the funniest Willem Dafoe performance before? I've never seen him that way before. He was legitimately funny.
Reminded me a little bit of what he does in Wes Anderson movies, where he's very big and broad, like in Life Aquatic or Grand Budapest. But he's very funny in this movie. It takes place 36 years after the original, just like in real life. We're following the Dietz family again. We learn very early on in the movie that Charles Dietz, the paterfamilias, has been killed in a shark accident after his plane crashed. This has been done because Jeffrey Jones, the actor who portrayed Charles in the original film, has been charged and convicted of sex crimes and is not a person you'll ever see in an American movie, more than likely.
Yeah.
So they animate him and then show his death as a shark. And then in the film, we see, I think pretty humorously, him being a half person with no head and shoulders.
Yes, exactly.
And we see him in this sort of the afterlife. But that event, which happens very early on in the film, is sort of the orienting event because his funeral and this gathering returns everyone to Winter River. Is that the name of the town in Connecticut where they used to live? Mm. And that leads to eventually the return of a Beetlejuice figure and all of the characters that are introduced throughout this film colliding with each other. I think I struggled maybe with this, you guys, with this movie a little bit more than you guys.
Okay.
Because
you've been living with it for months and months on end.
Well, I think it's a little bit of the problem that a lot of grown-up adults have when they see new versions of things that they liked when they were kids, which is we already have Beetlejuice, right? And every time they tried to do something that was like, what if it was also like this? I was like, well, that's just not as good as the thing that I saw before. I don't know if that's like a sophisticated level of criticism, but something was just kind of gnawing at the back of my neck while I was watching the movie. Where I was like, this isn't totally right. This doesn't feel exact. I laughed.
Oh, you're
100% correct.
Without a doubt.
Yeah.
Because the only character there are only two characters in the movie that seem like they exist in the same world that we saw before. And to me, it's Beetlejuice and it's Catherine O'Hara's character, who it's even the way she long blinks and very, very, very small things that she did in the first movie. They seem like they're in the same movie. Everybody else, it feels like, and this is a very overused term, it feels like cosplay a little bit. Like just a little bit. And it took me a while. It's not till the movie gets super duper zany. It took me a while to fall back into the world that was created in 88. There's nothing, I think you're absolutely right in that, to be honest with you.
Right. Well, I think some of that is the construction of the movie where maybe they think they're trying to ease you back in, but Lydia, Winona Ryder's character, is basically doing Burton cosplay and is a she's a TV star, but she's basically
it's like
YouTuber.
A Ghost Hunter style.
Right. And they're
Discovery
making like a
Channel.
very cheap show, and it's like sort of a send up of like the culture that has emerged from Beetlejuice and also like our current moment. So it feels like it's supposed to feel a little fake.
And there's something else that happens as well with these movies to me. And it's just a difference in the way that the movies would, the way we approach filmmaking now is from back in the good old days. When Beetlejuice first came out, the characters that were the Dietz family, they took themselves seriously. They weren't like the Justin Theroux character in this movie isn't a real person. Like it's not it's a
He's
a
very broad and zany.
Yeah,
Yes.
but like Otho and the dad and the mom and all of these people, they were yuppie, sort of pretentious, whatever, but they were serious to themselves. They were like, it was actually, there was the realism of who they were, and the clash of them and the Maitland family is what kind of made the movie work. But while all these characters now, they're kind of send-ups of people, and they're playing it in a very on-the-nose way. The priest, who that guy, I don't know that guy's name, but
Vern Gorman.
But he's been in he's very familiar
He's
face.
that guy, yeah.
Yeah, and so like for that, it kind of was like sketch comedy in a way.
I agree.
Totally agree.
I think the other thing to consider is that the original film is, at least at the outset of the movie, very much Adam and Barbara Maitland's movie. Two characters who I think we were all kind of waiting to show up in this movie and then don't show up. I don't think that's a spoiler to say that, but they were played by Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis. And they were sort of our, POV characters, our sort of portal into this new world as newly dead people exploring and figuring out all of this stuff. This movie is more focused on the Dietzes, and even though I agree with you that they are grounded in that first film, they're still odd.
They're odd. For sure they're odd. But sincerely odd.
Sincerely odd. And if you play them bigger, then the movie feels certainly more like a comedy than like a horror movie. Beetlejuice at times, the original film, is scary and strange, and you don't really know where it's going, especially if you're younger. This movie just felt almost parodic, almost like a self-aware exploration of the Beetlejuice mythology. No, there are always some things in movies like this that I'm going to enjoy. Like every Tim Burton movie is some sort of active homage to a movie history. Like if you look at it, it's like Pee-wee's Big Adventures, like Dorothy and Wizard of Oz, like Batman is like the Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. This is a movie that's like basically an Italian horror movie. There's literally a long Italian homage to a Mario Bava movie. And then 5 minutes later, they literally say the name Mario Bava, film festival. I like that he always does that. I like that he's always like, don't forget about Vincent Price. Don't forget about the history of horror in movies and what all this stuff means. But it actually felt worse in a movie like this, which is just more of a broad studio comedy, to shoehorn in some of that personal eccentricity. And I wonder if, the 10 or 15 years in the Charlie and the Chocolate Factory and the Dumbo and all that stuff has kind of like led Tim Burton down a path he can never stray from now. Does that seem unfair to you?
No, it seems like an accurate reading. And it also just seems like an effort to broaden the audience. This is positioned at people who saw Beetlejuice when they were young, right? We were all, because it was 36 years ago. And then they're also hoping that we will bring the next generation, which is why Jenna Ortega is in it, which is why there's like a weird phone TikTok stunt in it, which is why, so I think that there is something very conscious about being, I want to do my Tim Burton stuff, but I also have been making hopefully broad studio movies for the past 20 years. So, let's enact the reference, but also then say the name of the reference just to make sure that, the new people learn. And the entire first 30 minutes with like the true ghost hunter, spooky stuff and the internet and all that is like, hey kids, here's something for you.
Yeah.
So it's natural to be disappointed in that.
I think the thing that's most like that, I'm curious for your opinions, is just the presence of Jenna Ortega, who is a genuine Gen Z superstar. We've had some debate about her over the last couple of years about like how much of a star she actually is. I don't know what were your thoughts on her?
Went to a friend of mine's house and in New York, and his daughter comes down. The daughter's 15, 16 years old, and she's wearing a Jenna Ortega shirt. Yeah. And I was like, oh, like a shirt with the actress on there.
Right.
And she's like,
the shirt that Amanda was wearing this week with Josh Hartnett's face on it.
Wow.
Thank you. It was actually 5 Josh Hartnett faces.
You're happy he's back.
He's
back, by the way.
I know.
Yeah.
I was leading the charge. I'm trying.
He was one of the top. Wait a minute. What? Where's that guy?
Yeah.
Like, he literally was like, what happened to him?
He went off and raised a family.
Yeah, in the UK, he's got 4 kids.
Yeah.
Oh, for real?
Yeah.
Oh, good for him. And then he comes back and says, oh, that's the guy. Remember that guy? It's like, oh, it's Josh. We like him. He's good.
We love him.
Yeah, he's good. He can do a lot of different stuff. And so I asked her about it, and this is Legal Woman is a big horror fan. We were talking about me and her seeing Terrifier 3. We talked about Terrifier 2. We talked about Terrifier 1.
Yes.
And so
when are we seeing Terrifier 3?
We're going to see. Whenever it drops, I'll go see it.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah,
I can't wait.
Terrifier
Amanda's not coming.
Yeah, like Art the Clown. Art the Clown.
Okay.
It's my guy. So we were talking about
your guy?
So this is what I'll say.
That's dangerous.
It is dangerous. Terrifier 3.
It is dangerous, and I'll tell you why. But like, if I'm going to do horror, it can't be anything supernatural. And this is going to sound so stupid, Sean.
Yeah.
It can't be anything supernatural with like the nun and Jesus stuff and all of that stuff. Because I believe that stuff is real.
Okay. So,
right? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But you don't believe that a strange drifter who dresses like a clown and serial murders dozens of people is real? Because that is real.
But I got guns at the crib. So you know what I mean?
So like, listen, be prepared.
So you know what I mean? So Art the Clown can get clapped.
Yeah.
But like the nun, exorcist, all of that type of stuff that you can't do anything about, I don't really want to, because I believe that stuff is real. You know what I mean?
It's a good take.
So
That's
Terrifier 3, I can go see it because Art the Clown, I'll put some on your ass, you know? But when I talked to her about Jenna Ortega, she worshipped her.
Mm-hmm. Because of Wednesday? Because of what?
Because of Wednesday. Because of she's a horror fan. Because of Scream.
Yeah.
Because of the T West movie. So she really was into her.
And she is out here. Like her press run has been incredible of just throwing out like arcane film references. And then Winona is like, we were waiting for Jenna Ortega, like the true next generation cinephile, to come along.
She was like, my favorite movie is Possession. And I was like, I'm a Jenna Ortega fan for life.
Yeah.
So almost in a way that I haven't seen her, like a young star, resonate. There's a little bit of it with Florence Pugh, but like a young female star resonate with an audience in a while. I actually think it's real because I heard it directly from the kids.
Yeah, I mean, the person it reminds me a little bit of is Winona Ryder.
Same thing.
You know, Winona Ryder very similarly, especially at the time of Beetlejuice, is somebody who became like instantly canonical in the history of young Hollywood actresses, where she had a very distinct style. She was sort of like the goth icon. She is somebody who very quickly sought out working with great actors, worked with Coppola, worked with Scorsese, like, you know, spent a lot of time talking about what a cinephile she was. She was recently in the Criterion Closet, amazing episode of the Criterion Closet. Winona, still just absolutely just the best, like a very important woman to me in the world. And frankly, she should be very quietly, subliminally taking down Millie Bobby Brown, which is really what all those comments are about how
it's true.
She doesn't watch movies and Jenna Ortega does watch movies and therefore Jenna Ortega is superior. That's basically what that whole press campaign was about.
See it.
It was really funny.
Yeah.
Winona, I think I think she's pretty good in this movie. She's definitely not on the level of Michael Keaton just sliding right back into Beetlejuice.
It's amazing the Keaton because of the makeup. It is like no time has passed. I'm like, oh, you look the same and you're still as agile. And the timing is like, I mean, it's so funny. And there is something about, because you are waiting so long for him to show up. And man, that was another thing you said when we walked out was like, he's not in it that much.
Yeah.
Which he's also not in the first one that much.
Which I watched it when I got home and I had no concept of until you actually said it.
Right.
Because the movie feels like, in that movie, it feels like he is lurking around every corner.
Yeah.
And in this movie, it doesn't quite feel that way.
You're right. It's a good point. There's this sort of like suggestion that someone is coming throughout the first film. And this film, it's like, I mean, of course.
Everybody's here.
And he's going to be here any minute now. And in fact, the movie does something that I thought, it was a funny set piece, but I thought was a mistake. Which was that he's introduced in the movie a little bit earlier than it felt like he should have been with the couples therapy moment where Justin Theroux's character is the first one to say Beetlejuice 3 times.
Yeah.
And then they get sent into the sort of the underworld with him. And I think if they had waited until the moment when Winona Ryder's character is trying to save her daughter and then she, in an act of desperation, knows she needs to go to Beetlejuice.
Yeah.
Just from a pure like narrative movie experience, I think that would have been like a much bigger payoff for us to finally get to see Keaton 49 minutes into the, you know what I'm saying?
Yes, but also you can't make a sequel called Beetlejuice. I mean, like, I mean, it's just sort of, there is like an existential problem within a sequel to Beetlejuice when all everybody wants is more Beetlejuice. But of course, what made the original so magic was like the like very like sparing, restrained, but also over the top hilarious use of Beetlejuice. So, what are you supposed to do? On
the Tim Burton front, I'll say this. There's one thing in this movie, and I don't want to pick on this character or this actress because I love her. There's one thing in this movie that to me is indicative of the difference in Tim Burton 88 and Tim Burton now, is Monica Bellucci being in this movie. Like, that's his girlfriend, right?
Yeah.
And so,
a man who is famed for putting his girlfriend in his movies.
Loves to put his girlfriend in his movies.
Lisa
right?
Marie, Helena Bonham Carter, they always play a role in his movies.
Right. That's his girlfriend. Like, in 88, he wasn't to the point to where he could just plop his girlfriend in the movie, right? And with a lot of times with directors as they age, it's actually about controlling how big and how much ego and how much of them they can put in their films and how dedicated they are to just the story that they're trying to tell.
Right.
Especially the greats. Now, most directors, you give them more leash, you get more good stuff. But there's always a better version of the movie that they're trying to make to me. And the best version of this movie just does not have Monica Bellucci in it.
It's true.
It doesn't. Like, it's always good to see her. She's impossibly beautiful. She's always charismatic on screen. But if you yank her out of this movie, it's probably an easier story to tell. And I honestly did not realize they were dating. Like, I went home and looked up the movie to do some stuff, and I'm like, oh.
Yeah.
At this point, he's to the point where no one can't tell him not to put his girl in
they need
the
him to make the movie. That's
right.
the thing. It's like, you kind of can't make a Beetlejuice movie without Burton. I will say the introduction of her character, who is the sort of, I guess, ex-wife of the Beetlejuice character.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
The introduction is really cool.
Yeah.
So, like, that was very Beetlejuicy, the sort of like reconstruction of her body after the boxes fall off the ground when janitor Danny DeVito walks through. But I think I agree.
Right.
I talked to somebody yesterday who saw the movie too and was just like, this is extraneous. Like, we don't need this.
It's true, though. It also does set up, like you said, that 4-minute, Italian horror homage, which was really good.
It was
fun.
It was cool.
There are a lot of just like very cool artistic sequences within the movie that it's like, well, did we really need this to like the storyline of Beetlejuice? No. But also, like, at some point, are we here for the storyline of Beetlejuice, or are we here for the... So I completely agree with you. And like, it's unfair to Monica Bellucci because obviously she looks beautiful, but most of the time she's just like walking around silently in hallways.
It's like they couldn't... It's
like,
true.
Respectfully, that's all
it's
she's doing.
They couldn't decide which movie they wanted to make. Either movie, because we haven't even talked about Dead Boy...
the teenager.
The dead ghost boy.
Jeremy, yes.
Jeremy. So either movie, if we're doing a movie now where Beetlejuice is the prey, for the entire thing, and then Lydia, that's so awesome as a premise, right?
I totally agree with
And
you.
then if we do a movie where the dead boyfriend shows up earlier in the film, and then Beetlejuice has to help, and then that whole thing, that is also awesome. But they tried to do them both. And they're clunky together.
I completely agree.
Totally agree. Plus, then Justin Theroux is there as like a reality TV producer.
Yes. I will say that the Jeremy plotline I wanted to discuss with you guys.
Yeah.
So Arthur Conti is this young actor who plays a boy who Jenna Ortega's character meets cute the way that you do when you're an alienated teenager and you come across, a soul match.
She crashes her bike through the fence and into his tree.
And he's in a treehouse.
No bruise.
It looked like quite a spill, too.
Hit her face directly on the tree.
Yeah.
No
and
bruise.
she's chilling.
Yeah.
Okay, so this guy I'm learning is on House of the Dragon.
He is. Well, he was only in one.
Well, I Googled it.
That's where I know him from. I kept trying to figure it out.
No Wikipedia page for him yet. People need to get on that.
So Arthur Conti and Jenna Ortega's characters, they start this teen romance. And I told this to you guys last night. When this sequence started happening in the movie, I was like, get me the fuck out of here. I was like, what kind of bullshit Stranger Things appeal to 14-year-olds is happening in my Beetlejuice movie? And then credit to the screenwriters and Tim Burton. They were like, that's not what we're doing at all. In fact, this is something completely different. And this character is not at all what you thought he was. I was like, in that rare state of Sean panic, like movie panic, where I was like, you fucked me on this, Beetlejuice. But they didn't.
There's also something like very primal, like 11-year-old Sean being like, I don't want to see people fucking kiss right now.
Well, it was also like the Sigur Rós needle drop and, like all this like indie rock I turned to Van at some point.
You did yell physical media. No, because he was talking about his record collection and the book that he picked up that is like the handbook for dying.
Well, Amanda, he was aghast at the needle drop when they were dropping. He was like, have you ever seen him drop like a pop music reference in a movie like this?
Well, Tim Burton never does that.
Yeah.
I think it was a Mazzy Star song while she's riding on her bike through the town. And I was like, this is not Tim Burton. Where the fuck are we right now? We're on an episode of The Year I Turned Pretty or whatever the fuck that show's called.
Yeah.
But fortunately, that isn't what happened. I actually really liked what they did there. And I guess on the plus side, the movie has a pretty good sense of humor about dispatching with all of these extraneous side plots. You know, like the way that all of these characters get eliminated from the movie is very quick and very funny.
Yeah.
Well, okay, but also are you allowed to do that?
Allowed to do what?
Can we talk about we're doing spoilers at this point.
Okay, we're spoiling a critical moment from the film Beetlejuice now.
Like when the sandworm showed up, I was like, what are we doing here copyright wise, Like
I had wondered that years ago, because obviously the sandworms feel like an homage to Dune. The David Lynch Dune is 84, Beetlejuice is 88. At the time, it felt like it was...
I had no concept of what Dune was when Beetlejuice dropped.
Yeah.
Zero concept. Okay. As a matter of fact, the first time I ever put it together was in this movie when they literally have the ground shaking.
Yeah. And
I started doing like that.
Yeah.
But during that time, I had no concept of it.
Yeah. I stood up, saluted, and said Shai Hulud when they appeared.
That's what I'm talking about.
I like that movie.
Dune Part 2?
Yeah.
Great film.
And Part 1.
Overall...
I might have overstated how many times I saw it. I think it was only...
I think you said it was 12.
It wasn't.
How many was it?
I could only actually remember. It was bullshit. I could only actually remember. Now, it might be 12 now, but in theaters, because me and Kalika just run it on a loop, I can only actually remember 6 times.
Okay.
6 times.
That's
6
still
or 7
a lot.
times.
That's pretty good.
It is.
I have no idea why you said 12. When you said 12, I was like, that just doesn't seem possible.
Yeah, it was me over my skis.
Okay.
It happens.
All right.
Okay.
Well,
sometimes I
it's
say,
podcasting,
sometimes look, it's...
You got to bring the energy up.
Are you saying you're an untrustworthy source on podcasts?
I am a very trustworthy source. Okay. I'm a trustworthy in the energy, but sometimes in the details, you might need to check on.
Interesting. Okay. Right. We'll keep that in mind. What did you guys think of the big closing musical number?
I mean, I enjoyed it, but that's like why I like going to the movies, and it's funny. And I liked the homage to the things that I like about the original. But it was also like, oh, you're doing this again at great length.
Yes.
So
I wondered which thing they would definitely bring back. So in Top Gun Maverick, there is volleyball.
There is. Well, it's football.
It's football. Yes. Beach
what
football.
Is it like dog fight football?
Yeah, sure.
Right.
Yes.
So
which is definitely a real thing.
In a legacy sequel, not in all of them, right? Because in Blade Runner, they didn't fucking do it. But like in a lot of the
Harrison Ford was in that.
Right. In a lot of the legacy sequels, they do it. I wondered which thing it would be from Beetlejuice that they would do again. And I should have expected that it would be that. It totally worked for me.
Yeah, I enjoyed it too. Good song choice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And we won't spoil it for people who haven't
And
seen it.
also, it's just, there's like a lot of Keaton really letting loose.
Agreed. This is a pretty fun, it's like a 6 out of 10, 5 out of 10 kind of situation for me. Fun.
But also, like, if you were looking forward to seeing Beetlejuice in theaters because the original meant something to you, and you're like, I'm going to go, you'll have a good time. I
agree. It's a well-made legacy sequel. It doesn't depend too much on the, hey, remember when this happened? Remember when this happened? There's some of it. There are sandworms. There's sing-along music moments, but and it's thankfully not I don't know, it's Outer Banks season 3. That's what I was afraid of,
Do you even know what happens on Outer Banks?
The TV series?
Yeah.
I think like beautiful young people between the ages of 15 and 25 get into torrid affairs.
Right, but it's like a reality show, right?
It's scripted.
Oh, it's scripted?
Yeah.
Oh, I never realized that. Okay.
Man, I've never seen a second of it.
Nor have I.
Aren't they trying to? But they're trying to find a buried treasure.
I thought it was like Laguna Beach, but
I don't think so. I think what Van is saying is correct.
Laguna Beach. What a time in life.
You enjoyed that show?
Bro, those are my whites. I'm telling you, man, there were better whites back then. Those are my whites. Stephen, LC, Lauren. I once played basketball with Stephen Coletti. He came in the gym. I was trying to get this motherfucker shots. I was setting screens for him. That was peak. Remember?
Lo followed me on Twitter
oh my God.
8 years ago, and it was one of the great moments.
Who was the boyfriend? His name was Bobby something. Bobby O or something like that. It was a crazy guy. Some kind of crazy dude that came on there as the boyfriend to one of them later on.
I thought that was Audrina's boyfriend.
Yeah, it was a Bobby. Yeah, I know who you're talking about, but I do also thought that was a Hills Audrina situation.
Maybe it's the Hills, but all of that's together. This is when we're talking about Laguna Beach, the Hills, 90210 Melrose Place.
Sure, yeah.
These are all.
Do you keep up with them? Like, are you up on what's going on with Kristen Cavallari these days?
Nah.
Okay.
I did the podcast from What's Her Face and her husband, Spencer and Heidi.
Yes.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Yeah, I did their podcast. It was very fun to hang out with them. They seem regular, but that was an era to me. That was a great era.
Yeah, really formative.
Yeah, for sure.
I have no idea how to bring that back to Tim Burton. Like, literally no clue. I can't think of two things that have less to do with each other than Laguna Beach.
Well, they are
California. How about that?
I was going to say, like, very particular, deeply defined aesthetics and a world unto their own.
Oh, that's good. You're really looking at the text.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. I've always found it extremely funny that Tim Burton is from Burbank.
It is funny.
You think he is from Transylvania, Castlevania.
Bro.
Maybe Germany at worst.
This is one of my most formative memories here. Okay. This is one of my most formative memories. Once again, Van loves to be nostalgic. I came from a better time in movies. I was born in a better time. It's just facts.
Mm-hmm.
It used to, on HBO, there used to be the making of the movie.
I love this.
And you would sit down and you would watch the making of the movie. And Tim Burton said something I will never forget when they were talking about Edward Scissorhands. Tim Burton says, well, I'm from a place called Burbank, California. And in this place, everything looks the same and there are no seasons. And he said this when he was talking about the making of Edward Scissorhands. And I was like, fuck. What do you mean? He says, all the houses look the same. There are no seasons. It stays the way that it is all the time. So when you inject Edward Scissorhands, even when Edward is making it snow and all of that stuff, he's making a movie about the town of his childhood and essentially putting himself, how he viewed himself into the movie. And it just kind of changed my perception of everything. So when I think about the fact that he's from Burbank now, I think about every film is him creating a world much more dynamic and visually pleasing than the one that he grew up with. He felt like the outcast. He keeps telling that same story over and over and over again. I will just never forget that he said that because it made him as a filmmaker, and that movie makes so much more sense. Because if I didn't know what Burbank was. I had no clue. And then I got out to California. I'm driving around. I'm like, oh, this motherfucker's telling the truth. It's like everything looks the same and there are no seasons. Shout out to Burbank. But, like that's what I think about when I think about him being from there.
I think you just basically nailed the theory of his filmmaking point of view, which is that he is a person who is without a country, without a tribe, without a group of people who understand him. And almost, I would say 95% of his lead characters are in those predicaments. And that's the world that they enter.
But also a product of Burbank and of because there is...
The home of Disney.
Cal Arts and all
and
of that
something
stuff.
Accessible and he's been raised in Hollywood, and so he is always, and sometimes you get Beetlejuice and sometimes you get, Dark Shadows or whatever, but
a child of popular culture.
Exactly.
Yeah. Somebody who has consumed a lot of movies and television and is filtering it through. We talk about that with folks like Tarantino. In Saturday Night, the new Saturday Night Live movie, there's a moment where Lorne Michaels turns to network executives and says, this is the first TV show made by the generation that was raised on TV. And, it's a phrase that I think has been uttered about Saturday Night Live before, but trenchant. And also very true of Tim Burton, is somebody who's like really the first post-horror stylist, somebody who's basically taking what happens in horror movies and horror storytelling from the 40s through the 70s. And then is like, here's my essentially like Disney-informed, pop network television-informed extrapolation of that, colliding with whatever high art, whatever animation styles you like, or whatever kind of, international filmmaking you like. But, guy who worked at Disney as a story concept artist and a storyboarding artist. And in those late 70s and early 80s Disney movies, he was there in the building for a lot of that stuff and really struggled to get his visions into those movies. And then effectively like starts making shorts and sets out on his own to make his own movies. But that friction between the commercial and the outsider art is what makes him, I think, really, really special.
But the fact that he can't translate it to like a broader audience, because I would say for our generation and like certainly for me, he was like creepy aesthetic. That's how I learned about that was the
goth
first
sad boys.
horror
monsters.
movies, like, and all of these references. And he was taking the 40s and 50s and this grand tradition and marrying it with like certainly a visual style that was new and but like familiar to people who had grown up on Disney, or just more approachable. And so then he creates like, kind of like whimsy horror for our generation.
Yeah, Pee-wee is a kids movie.
Yeah.
It works as a kids movie. Now there's some terrifying parts in the movie. Large Marge, it was scary to me. Like
it's very scary.
You know what I mean?
Terrifying to me as well.
There's some scary parts, but that works like as a kids movie. But it also has the sensibility of there being something just a little bit more sinister in there. It feels like it takes place in a different version of Earth, so like you're a little bit off balance. But by the time they round it around and James Brolin is in the movie at the end, it ends in a very Disney way. And like he pipelined, right? He's a Cal Arts guy, right? Like so he's pipelined all the way through like a Disney legend. But just weird enough to be not totally mainstream with what he was doing. But also very mainstream.
I think that the Disney part of it is really, really important. This is all top of mind because I've been watching so many Disney classics with my daughter over the last year. And we had this really funny experience where we went to Disneyland a couple months ago and she had a great time and every ride was great. And, she's running all through the park, except we got online for the Snow White ride. And the Snow White ride is inside and sort of like a tram ride that you ride in. And we got right to the front of the line. And I'm sure if she hears this 20 years from now, she'll be embarrassed. But she got scared. And she was like, I don't want to go on this ride. Take me away from this ride. And she got really upset. Because that little moment when the Wicked Queen turns herself into an old crone to a little kid is really scary. Or if you watch Sleeping Beauty, the last 5 minutes with Maleficent, is when she turns into a dragon is really
scary.
Those movies get intense.
Yeah.
They get very, very scary. And you can feel him. You can feel his interest in those movies as a kid, like filtered into these movies. So he's like towing this line between how scary do I want to make Large Marge versus how fun and whimsical do I want to make Pee-wee's adventure and, tap dancing his way through biker bars. So it makes just a wholly unique blend. It's funny, I was rewatching Ed Wood last night, a movie that I've always loved. And that's a Disney movie. Touchstone picked that movie up because another studio wouldn't take it. And it's almost him like circling the square on his career where he's like, I'm going to make an homage to a trash film artist for the biggest, most historical children's movie studio, which more or less fired me off of their animation team. You know, like it always feels like he's having these recurrences in his career, Beetlejuice being the most recent occurrence. But even the failure of a movie like Dumbo is fascinating because that clearly set him on like a new course where he was like, I'll never work at Disney again. I won't compromise my vision. It leads to him doing Wednesday. It leads to him doing this movie. I do wish he would try to do one more Ed Wood style film for adults. I don't know if that's something that interests him anymore. He's gotten very rich and very successful making things for angsty 14-year-olds. But his first 8 movies is as good a first 8 movie run as I can think of in the history of Hollywood. I certainly there are like people like Kurosawa and Hitchcock who, have remarkable careers and their filmographies way outmatch Tim Burton. But the first 8 movies and what they say about what the world means to him and what it's going to mean to us is pretty astounding. And definitely shaped my taste as a movie watcher.
Can I ask you a question? Are you counting Nightmare Before Christmas in that? Because I'm just wondering what, like...
I think it stops at Sleepy Hollow.
Okay.
And I would say Sleepy Hollow is the first movie of his that I find to be half successful.
Right.
So maybe if we include... Maybe it's the first 8.5 movies if you want to include Nightmare Before Christmas.
Well, I mean, I was just, asking whether...
I was wondering if it should be eligible for top 5s because Nightmare Before Christmas, of course, is a movie that Tim Burton produced but did not direct. It's directed by Henry Selick, the stop motion animation
very,
movie.
very common for people to make that mistake,
right?
To think that he directed it.
Because isn't it Tim Burton's The Nightmare Before Christmas?
It is Tim Burton's.
So,
and he's at that point in his career where he's made the Batman movies. You could sell an animated movie, and as a person who's probably getting ready to buy some Jack Skellington toys for his daughter, like that movie still is super powerful.
There's like
in culture.
A house in our neighborhood has like a 12-foot Jack Skellington that we visit every Christmas. My son loves it. Hello, man.
Your son talks to it.
Yeah. He's like,
you got to tell him his name is Jack.
We go see the man. Yeah, we're working on names right now. Right now it's very like this will. I will name this bear. I will name this man. So,
what do you think of my 8 movie theory?
When you look at it, it's pretty unimpeachable. You go from Pee-wee to Beetlejuice to Batman to Edward Scissorhands. I mean, it's just smoking. To Batman Returns, overhated, great movie.
Great movie.
Great movie. I can see why Warner Brothers balked at it because he was on some shit. Like he decided that he was going to take the character in a different way, make the movie darker. Like Penguin is insanely difficult to look at throughout the
disgusting
to look at.
But then there's Michelle Pfeiffer. So
come on now,
listen.
Don't get me started.
We are going to get started. We will be talking about it if we're doing top 5.
Don't get me started. And then Ed Wood and you end at Mars Attacks.
So I think Mars Attacks is a great success. That is maybe a slightly controversial opinion.
A little bit.
I rewatched it in preparation for this, and it's a real admire all of the ideas and everyone swinging for the fences. And again, like incredible cast. Everyone wants to work with Tim Burton.
Truly insane cast.
Yeah. And some of it is just that the effects and there's like an age, even though it's doing like a very specific animation thing that is, I don't know. It's a lot by the end when the ships are zooming around and I got to watch the war for a long time. And I'm like, all right, okay, I get it.
I have a theory. There's never been a movie that has this many people in it that is totally good. Like movies like It's a Mad, Mad World and all of those movies like that. There's never been a movie that has, maybe if you do like, what were some of those movies back in the day? Like, when they were
Towering Inferno,
Poseidon
Adventure.
Maybe some of those.
Yeah. I mean, this Mars Attacks.
Valentine's Day.
See what I'm saying? Valentine's Day.
They're usually not good.
They're bad.
Right. Like there's not a lot of movies that have all of those people in them that are good because you sacrifice a little bit something in the way of the movie when there's a different guy that like that's popping up every half scene.
So we talked about disaster movies when we talked about Twisters on the show. I didn't include Mars Attacks because there are aliens in Mars Attacks.
Yeah.
But Mars Attacks is this very clear marriage between schlocky 50s sci-fi
Right.
and 70s disaster movies. The reason it's a movie that has Jack Nicholson, Annette Bening, Pam Grier, Jim Brown, Pierce Brosnan, Sarah Jessica Parker, Michael J. Fox, like you said, a crazy cast, is because it's, kind of lovingly lampooning those kinds of movies. I think I felt like I got the joke when I was 14, and I was like, this is such a good idea for a movie.
I mean, it's also impeccably, like,
it looks awesome.
It looks awesome.
Yeah.
And you can be a fan of the animation or not, but it looks so good, and it looks awesome for like 2 hours. Like that's a long movie, and everything. You're just like, wow, I can't believe they spent like this much time and money on it. MoMA did a Tim Burton exhibit like at some point, and like Mars Attacks and all of those movies are like, why? Because there is such a richness to the visual stuff, but like it's long. You know what I mean?
Okay. Some people would say that it ends at Ed Wood. That the glory run ends at Ed Wood.
The glory run, maybe. I think Mars Attacks is kind of just, honestly, I would look at Mars Attacks and not Sleepy Hollow sort of as the harbinger of things to come. Mars Attacks.
I think that's right.
Mars Attacks doesn't quite not work.
Yeah.
But it's kind of like, when this guy goes a little bit bigger, things start to crack a little bit.
You're definitely right about that. Sleepy Hollow is much more contained.
Sure.
I think it's a little more dull at times than Mars Attacks, which is this kind of like, perpetual motion machine because you're moving from character to character. And then 2001's Planet of the Apes, and this is a guy who's made some bad movies. This might be his worst movie. Yeah. I mean, this is we talked about it when we did the Apes episode, but just
a monumental cultural failure.
Genuinely bad movie.
Yeah.
And that triggers two reactions. It triggers a return to something more intimate in Big Fish, which is like a good movie.
Big Fish solid.
Yeah, it's fine.
It's good.
Yeah.
And then Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, which sets us off on this course of a sort of, big reunion with Johnny Depp. And then he becomes kind of a commercial juggernaut for the next 10 years, but also becomes a filmmaker who seems to have like completely lost his identity or his way. We're all at an age where those movies, I think, mean less. I think if you're in your 20s, you might have a different relationship to that Charlie and the Chocolate Factory or the Alice in Wonderland adaptation. Is anybody in this room care about those movies?
Anybody in this room, raise your hands.
No, Aleya, Jack, no. Bob, do you have any relationship to the latter half of the Tim Burton catalog?
Not really. No.
Okay. Great. Well, you three are men and women of taste.
Like,
okay.
Yeah.
No, there's
But something else around that movie that had changed too? I remember, so Johnny had changed, right? So when Tim Burton was casting Johnny earlier on, he was casting this beautiful, talented version of himself that could like be his avatar in all of these different movies. Well, post Pirates, Johnny's the biggest guy, like literally, he's the biggest guy until Robert Downey Jr. comes along with Iron Man, and then he becomes the biggest commercial guy. And then Tim and Johnny go for a ride together. They're like, okay, well, it's up. Let's go make some big movies where I don't have to fight with the studio to put you in the movie. Right. So they do this one, and then they come back, and it's Sweeney Todd, and it's they spin it and go make some bread. So I wasn't mad at it, but I had like absolutely zero desire to see Charlie and the Chocolate Factory. And when I did go to see it, it was too weird for me. I don't like these version of these guys. It's not the same battery of Pitcher and Catcher that I remember. So I was just kind of out on it.
Yeah. I agree.
Exactly
Are you guys considering that the latter half? Like, is that the line that you would draw it from Charlie and the Chocolate Factory on?
I think that's where it starts. Yeah. I think that's...
I mean, I have a pretty big relationship to Corpse Bride, but that would be the last one that like...
Yeah.
That's because that was on a lot and it was animated and like I was 9 when that came out. And so it was like a little too scary for me and something that I wanted to go back to once I was not so scared of it. But that was probably like the first time I realized like, oh, this is Tim Burton, this is his style, and then I went backwards from there, which is like not ideal timing, but still
that's a good movie. It's a good animated movie. It feels more in the tradition of Nightmare Before Christmas. It's the first feature that Laika co-produced, and then they went on to produce, Coraline and Box Trolls, Paranorman, like some very celebrated animated movies. It's like a fusion between the Laika aesthetic and the Tim Burton aesthetic. It's pretty good, but it's kind of sandwiched between these other movies that are just not so good. Charlie and the Chocolate Factory, Alice in Wonderland. Sweeney Todd is an okay adaptation of that musical.
Yeah. I mean, and it's doing the Sondheim adaptation in film form is, it's hard.
It is hard.
So
I think it landed for people though. I mean, it's not one for me.
It's not one for me.
But I think it landed for people. I mean, I feel like Johnny Depp got like an Academy Award nomination out of it. Yeah, so I feel like that movie landed.
It won
for
Best
people.
Art Direction that year, nominated for costumes. Colleen Atwood, who did the costumes for Beetlejuice Beetlejuice, has done many costumes for Tim Burton. You know, I'm going to assume that from the last 20 years, none of those movies end up making our top fives, right?
I mean,
from 94 on?
No, from 2005 on.
Oh, that's right. Because it's 2024. Shit. That's damn.
Man.
Life comes at you fast.
Man, time just moved 10 years into the future for you during this pod. That is remarkable.
That's really tough. Yeah, I think so.
How many years are you old?
Spiritually or in a physical sense?
How many years are you old?
I'm 44.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's tough.
I mean,
Yeah. It happens quick.
it's
Yeah.
it's brutal.
Yeah.
42. I was 3 years old when Pee-wee's Big Adventure came out. I probably saw it at 5. Imagine that.
Yeah.
Look at me now.
Yeah.
Super normal guy. Very chill guy. Everybody likes hanging out with.
Do you know what? Do you know which movie that like I was like super excited for? It's just such a beautiful story to me. And when it was bad, I was like, damn. It was Dumbo, bro. Like when Dumbo was like
a very disappointing movie.
When Dumbo didn't work, I was like, oh my God, man. I saw the trailer for Dumbo. I'm like, yo, the Dumbo story and the way that it is, there's no way you put the story with Tim and
do you remember
Colin
the cast
Farrell?
of this movie? Yeah, Colin Farrell, Michael
Ridiculous.
Keaton, Danny DeVito, Eva Green, Alan Arkin. And it stinks.
And it didn't work.
So, are you a big circus guy?
No.
Okay. Well, I mean, just like carnies. I don't know because you.
Carnies.
Yeah, it seems like you have like a relationship to clowns and also to Dumbo, and so
interesting.
I'm curious about this side of
We
your
should
life.
do Terrifier 4, but try to get Dumbo in the mix.
Terrified, like a crazy, deranged version of Dumbo.
Yeah.
Tusks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, like you got these big
Yeah.
tusks. So there was one time where I feel like I've told you guys this before. I thought that there was a clown situation that only I was seeing. I thought I was in a horror movie.
Mhm.
I told you about this before?
No.
So just real quick, I won't go long-winded
Okay,
here.
no.
So I'm at home one
I
time.
have all the time in the world.
I'm at home one time, Baton Rouge, 2002 maybe, and I'm
Yeah.
watching a show called BET Uncut. Are you familiar with
I
this show?
certainly am.
Okay, right. I know you know. See? Try to act like you're
It's
different.
A little
You're
after
just like
midnight
me.
material.
Yeah. And there's a commercial that comes on, and it's a little boy. Aleya's heard this story before. It's a little boy, and he's walking down the street, and then you see him, and then all of a sudden it cuts to another thing, and that little boy is on the back of a milk carton.
Oh.
And then you see a hand grab the milk carton, and it's a crazy evil clown. And the clown drinks the carton, and there's blood everywhere. And the clown looks at the camera and he goes, "Got blood?" Like the Got Milk ads, right?
Right.
Commercial went off. Nothing at the beginning, nothing at the end. It didn't seem like an advertisement. I legitimately thought that I was the only person that saw it. When I'm not even bullshitting you. I'm like, because I was waiting for it to advertise something, but it
Right.
didn't. So I'm like fucking looking around, and I'm telling my friends, I'm like, yo, I'm like, my man, bro, did y'all see this commercial with this clown? And they're like, no, I don't know what you're talking about.
Right.
Like,
And
bruh.
it's 2002, so you can't like get on Twitter. You can't.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm like, it's the era of the movie The Ring and all of that stuff. And like, I'm like, bro, I'm telling you, bro, it's a commercial, a clown, he drinks blood, he abducts a little boy, and they're like, whatever. And for about a week, I'm freaking out.
Okay.
Then I'm at my friend Gino's house.
Okay.
And the commercial comes on again. And I'm like, Gino, come here. This is the commercial. And when the commercial comes on, what had happened was BT Uncut would come on at weird times throughout the night. And sometimes the commercial would like cut in or out like weirdly.
Right. They weren't syncing it.
They weren't syncing
Yeah, they
it
weren't
right.
getting their ad dollars.
And
Yeah.
it came on and it said, live at LSU, Carn Evil. It was a fucking haunted house commercial.
Okay.
that the clown was doing the thing. The people from Higher Learning found the commercial and then sent it to me, which further traumatized me.
Okay.
But like since then,
This was like, what, 6 or 8 weeks ago that you first saw this? How old were you?
No, I was 22. But since then, I've had a weird relationship with fucked up clowns.
Uh-huh.
I both am terrified of them, but I also can't stop. Like I can't get enough.
Can't stop what?
I can't stop indulging into the fucked up clowns.
Okay.
Like a friend of mine told me how
You're seeking it out?
a little bit.
Okay.
A friend of mine told me how fucked up the It movie was.
Mm-hmm.
Had to go see it. Saw it twice. Saw the second one. Second one, not a good movie. Freakishly terrifying though. Like very scary.
Mm-hmm.
So like,
so what are we talking? It, Killer Clowns from Outer Space.
Oh my God, that one,
Scary,
that
one of the scariest
one
movies
of the
ever.
scariest movies that's ever
If you
been
see that
made.
movie under the age of 10, it will ruin your life.
Like freaks you out. Like all the stuff that the clowns do. What do? They throw the pie at you.
Yeah.
And then at the end of the movie, the pies come on the people. So
And the cotton candy. Yeah.
Cotton candy. So when Terrifier first dropped, it's like, I gotta see it.
Mm-hmm.
Kalika walked in the room. She's like, what the fuck are you watching? Like, what is going on? I'm like, I gotta see this. I gotta subject myself to it.
Are you not aware of the Terrifier phenomenon? Have we not discussed it on the show?
No, but I just Googled it when he was talking about it. And so it's like a guy wearing a clown costume who's a serial killer.
That is the description of what happens in the movies. The movies themselves have become one of the most successful independent film franchises, really the last 10 or 15 years. And so the third one is coming out this year, and it is eagerly anticipated among a certain stripe of horror fans that Van is describing. I would say Tim Burton feels very far away from what Terrifier is up to.
Oh yeah, very far.
Maybe he was never even close to it in the first place.
No, like
no,
the
Terrifier is
circus,
brutal.
Yeah,
No. Like clowns in the circus are where you find yourself in Tim Burton movies.
That's right.
You know,
Right. He is the clown. We are all the clown.
The Terrifier seems more like real life, which is like, and that's where crazy people put on a costume and then go kill people.
That's right.
Yeah, like somebody opens the door and the clown is outside of them, and you're like, the clown's gonna kill you. Stop. Don't be mean to the clown. Don't do what you're doing, and then they die.
I had an idea for a podcast that would never be able to be made because of the clearance issues, but it was going to be called Watching 120 Minutes, and we would just sit and watch an episode of 120 Minutes, the alternative music program on MTV.
Mm-hmm.
There is a spin-off show called Watching BET Uncut where we could just do the same. Just get an episode from 1997 of BET Uncut and just watch it and talk about what was happening and why we're seeing what we're seeing.
Amanda, have you ever saw it?
I don't think so.
Okay. I literally would pay, like, based upon Amanda's reaction to the Anthony Edwards in the video phenomenon.
Well, excuse me.
I would literally,
what did you think?
I would literally
What do you want me
pay
to Google right now? Let's go.
And I don't want you to do it.
I mean, it's like hours and hours and hours of content. It's a certain kind of music video.
A certain type of music video.
I mean, I can imagine. I was around, you know, like I was more tuned into TRL at that moment.
Right.
But like, listen.
The Tip Drill music video, have you ever heard of it before?
No, I don't think so.
Wow.
Okay.
Okay. No.
No, okay.
Not here.
Don't look up the Tip Drill music video, Amanda. Okay? All right. Just, I don't want your opinion of Nelly to change. Okay?
Oh, okay.
Right. So don't look up the Tip. Another time when you're away, just come back and report to me on what you think about the Tip Drill music video.
I'll let you know.
Not at work.
Would you guys like to talk about Tim Burton
yes,
top
please.
fives?
I apologize to the listeners of The Big Picture. I apologize.
No apology necessary. This is just part of the cultural spelunking that we do here on the pod. Van, do you want to go first?
Sure.
Number 5?
Ed Wood.
Okay.
I have Ed Wood number 5. It is a great movie, but a movie that I'm the least intimately connected to.
Why would you say that?
Because his departure in Ed Wood. Ed Wood was the first movie that didn't feel like the Tim Burton that I was used to. I liked the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Don't get me wrong. I like Ed Wood. But I'm like, oh, okay, this movie is a little bit stripped. It's a biopic. It really, more than anything, got me interested in Ed Wood and that type of filmmaking, to be honest with you. Beetlejuice is actually 4.
Okay.
Okay. And
well,
at this particular time, we're just talking about gradations of great.
Yeah.
Edward
So
Scissorhands.
from 4 to 1, you're like, we're in the hot zone here.
Yeah. Edward Scissorhands is a movie I have a deep, deep, deep connection to. Just because I've seen it so many times. I felt so close to the character, so close to Winona Ryder in the movie. Like I was very, very, like as a kid looking at Edward Scissorhands, and one of the first movies that made me like emote. Like you
Right.
care about this thing in a real way. Pee-wee's Big Adventure is 2. It's probably the Tim Burton movie that I've seen the most.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And it's probably the one that's most ubiquitous for me in terms of like being its place in culture in my house and stuff. Everyone loved it. Mother, father, sister, me.
Really? Your
Everybody.
parents like Pee-wee.
My daddy used to look at Pee-wee and just laugh and laugh and laugh.
Pee-wee is in that category. It's funny that you say that. You always get me thinking about my childhood whenever we podcast. Pee-wee is one of those things very much like The Simpsons that I distinctly remember my dad being like, this is stupid. And feeling like, shut up, man. Like, I like this.
Yeah.
You know, like, let me like this. Is it okay that I like this? So it's funny that your parents enjoyed it.
My dad used to be like, hey, what Pee-wee got going on? Like, what that? Oh, I like that Pee-wee. And that's how he was. I like Pee-wee, man. Pee-wee dancing, all kinds of stuff. I hope Pee-wee get his bike back. And then number 1, obviously you guys could have figured this out. Number 1 is Batman.
Okay.
Like, what Batman meant, like when the movie came out, the hysteria, the lines around the block, seeing it the way that it was, what the superhero movie could become. Remember, Donner Superman is probably like we're 10 years removed. What the superhero movie could be. It can be done artfully. It can be done seriously. It could be done in a sinister way. It could have the cool cultural moment with the soundtrack. You can have the impossibly beautiful Kim Basinger. It was just a complete moment in my childhood, and still to me represents a pinnacle of the interpretation of a character. Obviously, they were building on a lot. Frank Miller had taken Batman in a little bit of a darker place. You had all kinds of stuff to build on. But to me, it was the peak of Tim Burton's powers and his ability to put his artistic spin on something that already existed.
I was reading about Batman, which is also on my list.
Mine too. Yeah, of course.
That was interesting, which is that Tim Burton said when he was a kid, he was not a reader of comic books because he felt like he had dyslexia or something dyslexic about his ability to read the panels in the right order. And so it took but he said he was always fascinated by the imagery of Batman and the Joker, and that The Killing Joke was the first time he read a comic book where he didn't have the inability to understand the storytelling style. And that made me wonder if that's a comic book movie that is maybe more appealing to you because it doesn't have some of the trappings of like, you got to know about this and you got to know about this to kind of get on board with some of the storytelling.
Yeah, of course. And I mean, I think some of it is also, actually Batman Returns is higher in my ranking than Batman, but only because of Michael Keaton and Michelle Pfeiffer, which when I rewatched it, I just fast forwarded for them. Just having some.
What about Christopher Walken? I enjoy him in that movie
Listen,
as well.
everybody's very good in it, but Batman, as Van said, is like, here we go. It's like setting the stage, come into the world, and it is very, very kind of primal. And this person is working out some things, and you haven't seen his parents die like 45 times,
It's true.
And there's this guy who's Jack Nicholson, and you're like, oh, okay, so if this is what comics are. I get it. And I don't have to, read 40 other things to understand it.
Say with your chest to Van, that's really more of, that's his,
it's true.
That's his situation.
Joker, overall woman, like everything is given to you and you get why this guy goes crazy, why he becomes the clown prince of crime, why he's so dangerous. And you understand Bruce's demented trauma as well. Yeah. Even down to like Robert Wool playing the everyman that is like nothing compared to Bruce Wayne, but still, it's really a perfect movie.
What's your top 5?
So it's not very original. It's the first 5 movies, and I'm just going to tell you
in order.
No, not in order. But I mean, that's I did do a lot of rewatching. I was like, oh, am I going to throw like Big Eyes in here? And I was like, you know what? I'm not, because once again, it's Amy Adams. Interesting thing about Tim Burton's career, he works with a lot of Amanda's Black Licorice actors over time,
such as
Amy Adams. Winona goes back and forth for me. She's sort of in the Reality Bites and Little Women are two of the most important things happen, even though she's like arguably the worst part of Little Women. But you know what it is? It's like a Natalie Portman thing, who also shows up.
This is like dragged into a ditch situation here with you.
Listen,
like we're not.
When you say Black
Winona.
Licorice, you mean you don't like Winona Ryder?
Yeah, I'm just like, I don't. No, I like her a lot.
Okay.
I don't know if I think she's good at acting, which is also true of Natalie Portman. Yeah, I don't know whether I think she's good at acting.
Okay. This is a take. I like this shit.
And Johnny Depp is another one where
you don't think Johnny Depp could act?
Well, he could at the beginning, but now I'm just like, you're just walking through. I just don't respond to it.
Did you see Jean de Barry?
No, I didn't yet.
I haven't seen it either.
It's just like a lot of people where I'm like, are we sure? And then they're in like 8 of his movies. I think that Michael Keaton's pretty good.
Oh yeah, that's good.
Yeah. So
I think that
there's
Michael
an exception
Keaton,
to
Winona,
the rule.
and Johnny Depp all have something in common, which is that they're like beautiful people who are bound by their eccentricities, and that their eccentricities is what makes them special.
Yeah, but I do also think like Michael Keaton can still do the I'm speaking like a normal human being when he needs to. And Winona Ryder, I'm just like she's of different experience than all of us.
I think in the last 20 years, it frequently feels as though she has just been struck by lightning.
Yes, but that's what I'm saying.
I don't think that's true for the first 25 years of her career.
She's distinctly a different actress now.
Yes.
But I think that she just fell into roles before.
Yeah.
Like you've seen Heathers and stuff like that.
She's amazing in Heathers.
Yeah.
Heathers, Little Women, Reality Bites, really important. But like Little Women, she's being
Age of Innocence, Beetlejuice.
Age of Innocence is a really
Dracula.
interesting one, right?
She's
Where
really
it's like
good now when the movie isn't that strong.
They're using. Scorsese is using like her weirdness in the right way.
Okay.
In Age
I
of
hear
Innocence.
maybe the baby's coming. Maybe we better get you to a hospital quickly.
That's one thing we didn't talk about. Beetlejuice, which was like baby Beetlejuice, was really good.
Oh, that was funny.
Really spot on. And I was
meant to ask you about that.
I was like, this is accurate to my experience. So that was good. Anyway, so it's the
you
first
just
5.
took out Winona. God damn it.
I didn't take her out. I just am like, sometimes.
I'd like to take her out. Yeah,
sure.
Peak Winona for me is so. I looked at Winona. Like, remember the stupid Adam Sandler movie? What was it called?
Mr. Deeds.
Mr. Deeds.
See, I had that right at my fingertips.
Like Winona Ryder and Mr. Deeds. I was like, come on, man. I mean, this is top flight
beautiful
vitamin
and
D
definitely
milk.
has a presence.
This is great.
She's
but
great.
like when she's like
wonderful.
becoming a novelist at the end of Little Women, you're like, okay.
You don't like Girl Inter like I mean, obviously Angelina Jolie. Obviously Angelina Jolie acted circles around her in Girl Interrupted, but
I mean, this is what I'm saying.
Yeah,
it's just like there are places.
But that movie was made after the
shines.
lightning struck. You know,
Right.
there's a
then
demarcation
there
line.
are places where it's 94. It's the same era as
Little
Reality
Women is,
Bites.
yeah.
And
Girl Interrupted is a little
but like
bit.
Reality Bites is she's perfect, but she's also playing someone who is. It's actually a genius. I think about the gas card thing all the time.
It's a big move.
But it really
Very Amanda coded. Yeah, I got Dad's gas card.
You got to use what you have. Anyway,
do your
my
list.
top 5. So 5 Pee-wee. Just
okay.
Yeah, I don't know. This is, as you said, all choosing between classics. 4 Batman, 3 Batman Returns. Listen, Michael Keaton and Michelle Pfeiffer was, when you're young and you don't know everything, but you start picking up on the sparks, and I was like, something's going on here.
Yeah, something's happening.
Yeah. 2 Edward Scissorhands, which is, I agree, like a beautiful, and is like the most clearly related to Tim Burton's like
autobiography, basically.
Like real life, but also his autobiography turns into this like fantastical, so much of that movie's in daylight as well. And so like the brightly colored and he's carving everything. And it's just so
pastel
beautiful.
houses
It's like,
and
it's
the
probably,
topiary.
It's my favorite, but number 1 is Beetlejuice because Beetlejuice is like pretty core.
I didn't put Edward Scissorhands on my list. I did just rewatch it. It's great. I mean, it's kind of like, I feel similar. The first 7 movies, they all are kind of like moving up and down for me over time. But I already spoke about Mars Attacks. That's number 5. I think it's a cool big swing. It might be signaling the beginning of the end, as you were indicating, and I think that's fair.
You think Mars Attacks is a better movie than Edward Scissorhands?
It's a movie I like more.
I got you.
And that's that's
just the way it lands.
Personal taste.
Happens,
and when you say like Edward Scissorhands meant a lot to me, and I know that's true for a lot of people, where it like basically made them feel seen because the idea of the outcast is rendered so well in that movie.
Also, I think Johnny Depp and Winona Ryder are perfectly cast.
They're
in
both
that
wonderful.
movie.
You know
And
who really popped when I watched it was Kathy Baker.
Yeah.
She's really, really good in that movie.
Mhm.
So that's a fun movie, but Mars Attacks is just personal to me. I like it. Batman at 4.
Okay.
Ed Wood at 3.
Yeah.
You know,
That's,
movie dork.
it's you. Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Yeah,
you know,
and History of Hollywood. And I don't appreciate the Martin Landau Oscar win over Samuel L. Jackson. But that's something that happened, and we're all coping with that.
Sam's coping with it for sure.
I'm not coping may not be the word.
Fucking salty.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, understandable. But he's now the age that Landau was.
Yeah.
So, maybe there's an Oscar around the corner for him.
Right.
Number 2 is Beetlejuice, which is a perfect 5-star classic. And number 1 is Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which is a perfect 5-star classic.
Right.
Yeah.
And very important to you.
There's never been a movie like Pee-wee's Big Adventure. And also, whenever there are movies like Pee-wee's Big Adventure, which is essentially the comportment of a stand-up comic persona into a movie, it is almost never good. It is so hard to transform what Paul Rubens was doing on stage into a movie format. And the fact that that movie works as well as it does is incredible. And it's incredible because when they tried to make a sequel, much like Beetlejuice Beetlejuice 30 years later, it didn't work at all.
What was the sequel?
It was a Netflix movie like 4 or 5 years ago.
Oh, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
If Pee-wee's Big Adventure
Mm-hmm.
came out like 2017, Paul Rubens would be nominated for an Academy Award.
Because the Academy has changed?
Because I think that the movie itself, first of all, because he became Pee-wee, he never really got the credit that he deserved for the character of Pee-wee. Because in the 80s, I didn't really know his name until maybe like 93. Probably till after he got busted in the theater doing whatever he was doing.
Watching BET Uncut.
Watching BET Uncut, exactly.
No
And remember the whole MTV Music Awards things? We had a classic childhood. It's full of classics.
I agree.
Okay, it wasn't TikTok and stuff. It was classic moment after classic moment.
I believe this is called Old Band Van.
It is.
Yeah.
That might be the same MTV Music Awards with 2 Live Crew. It's classic moment after classic shit.
Okay.
But it's just, I'm just saying, it's just like a fantastic performance. He's funny. He's vulnerable. He's like, sometimes he's scary. Remember when he was like briefing people on his bike? He's hysterical. And the performance is underrated. I don't think people could appreciate it back then.
Do you think men should go to prison for cranking it in a movie theater? Aleya says yes.
It was an adult theater, right?
Well, yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, listen, I don't know the rules in Florida. What are the rules of entry? But
Let your freak flag fly. Come on. He was wrongfully accused.
I personally think that I put that one on the cops because that happened to what's his face too from American Pie. Like I put that
Shannon Elizabeth?
No. Who's the
dad?
The guy who
Eugene Levy?
No, not Eugene Levy. That wasn't him. That's not from American Pie. The other guy got caught. We did it at TMZ.
Oh, yeah,
The fucking dude. Y'all know who I'm talking about.
Yes, of course, from Best in Show. Fred Willard.
Yeah, don't you remember when, may he rest in peace, but then the dramatic reading of the arrest incidents is like the hardest that I've ever laughed.
Yeah.
But I feel like that's entrapment. Not entrapment, but I feel like that's
keep going.
That's like low hanging fruit. Why would you
low hanging indeed?
Exactly. Why would you go there to try to get that? Like you gonna find that. Like you just trying to hate on Pee-wee, man. They probably felt like they had one too.
They should have locked up Jack Nicholson in The Departed when he went in there. Remember that?
He should have been locked up. He was doing the same thing.
That's how they could have busted him. He didn't have to be an informant.
I mean, it does seem
That's
like there's like a
hilarious.
rules of engagement situation, you know?
I agree.
Just me.
Yeah.
Pee-wee is a great film.
It is.
It is.
Paul Rubens was a good actor too, but I think he was, codified clearly as Pee-wee for the rest of his career. Tim Burton, I got love for him. All these years later, no matter how many Dark Shadows or Charlie and Chalk Factories he makes, I'm still going to have a place in my heart. He helped me understand movies more clearly as a young kid. So it's pretty important.
$60 million. Told you this before. Tim Burton with $50 to $60 million. Perfect. He just needs to be limited. Batman was probably bigger than that. He just needs to be limited. Like,
Everybody needs creative restraints.
it's true, but particularly someone that has such a distinct visual style, because sometimes you lose the coherence of the story, like when you have that. Like Alice in Wonderland obviously you have to have it's a very visual movie, right? But that movie is really about a wacky, zany story where you really have to kind of get into it. And you can lose a little bit of what the movie is if you are paying too much attention to making it look bizarre and stuff.
Right.
And sometimes he falls under the weight of the aesthetic of the world that he's trying to.
Yeah. He's just like in the workshop for a little too long.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But like when it's simpler, like even Beetlejuice, good movie. Good. You say 6, I would say if we can do 0.5s, I would say 6.5 or 7 just because I had so much fun.
Okay.
But 6 is probably very solid. But that movie could have been an 8. It could have been a 9. It could have been a little bit faster paced.
Right. Also could have been a 3. So that's I come out of it with relief.
Fair enough.
So only had 2 Academy Award nominations, Burton, both for animated films. What do you think that says about the Academy?
Snobs.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, that was to your point about if PB were 2017, it would get an Oscar nomination, but it wouldn't because they don't acknowledge comedy. They don't acknowledge weirdness.
Yeah. Goth boys.
Genre.
I
guess they're getting better, but
I feel like they definitely didn't end, and maybe I'm wrong, but I just feel like performances like that are more appreciated now than they used to be.
I mean, that's true because it used to just be what's the biopic of the week.
Right. And they kind of still do that,
still do that.
But it seems like now you get the Academy like the momentum behind a performance and everybody being captivated with it goes a little bit further than it used to.
Are you still in on the Oscars?
What do you expect me to say?
Just be honest.
Yeah, I'm in on the Oscars.
Okay.
Do you have a pick for Best Picture this year?
Don't. I saw you guys making
wild predictions based on nothing.
I have a little work to do because I got buried under the content of this year, of this summer with like everything we were doing on the Ringerverse. You guys can go check us out. So I have a little work to do catching up. But like early on is Dune 2 is going to clean up? You guys tell me what you think.
It's definitely going to be nominated in a lot of categories.
But you don't think it's going to win anything?
I mean, we don't know, because historically they don't want to do the genre stuff, or if they do it for the third in a trilogy. See Return of the King, right? That's a movie that I've seen. I don't know about you.
I saw it.
They got hobbits in it.
Yeah.
Are the hobbits in it?
You guys shouldn't be allowed to talk about this stuff. I just got to put that out there. Can't believe I've facilitated an environment in which you get to do that.
So since there is like Dune 3 is kind of in the ether, maybe they won't put it up this time,
I'm looking forward to your take on Anora.
That's the one I saw you guys talking about. I haven't seen it.
Yeah.
I haven't seen it.
It's wonderful.
You guys love it.
It's kind of the BET uncut for Russian oligarchs.
Oh.
Yeah.
See, you should write shit like that. You should write little takes like that. Like that would get us out. Like, what is this movie? This movie is the BET dash, like a dash. Sean Fennessey, The Ringer. This movie is the BET uncut for Russian oligarchs. I'll definitely go see it.
What would that do for us if I did that more regularly?
For us. When I said us, I meant the us. Because maybe we want to see this movie.
The employees of The Ringer?
No, as in Black Americans.
Oh, I see.
Maybe
I understand.
Maybe we
got
want to go see that movie, but like no one's like, it's not really being marketed towards us.
Okay.
But like this is the BET uncut for Russian oligarchs. So think the villain in John Wick plus BET uncut. Think Eastern Promises
well, now
plus
you're
BET
now unfortunately
I think that's totally accurate.
Yeah, that's not it.
Okay.
You got to sprinkle in a dash of Pretty Woman.
What the fuck is the movie about?
Yeah. Think about it.
It's about a stripper who then, who meets the son of a Russian oligarch, and then and then things unfold from there.
Oh yeah, I'm in.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Okay, well, hopefully you see that film. Man, thank you very much. Where can we hear you and see you?
The Ringerverse, higher learning, lots of fun, churning out the content and having a great time here at the Ringer.
Amanda, where can we find you?
Here
Yep.
every day until I'm not anymore.
And also in prison for your Winona Ryder take, right? The nearest maximum security prison.
She just she turns Lori down. She Christian Bale is there at the fence just being like, marry me, I love you. And she's like, no, I need to become the great American novelist. Sure.
Okay. Great. Hey, thanks to Aleya Zenieris, who is abandoning the big picture for all of her work.
Wow.
Thanks to Jack Sanders. Thanks to our producer, Bobby Wagner, for his work on this episode. Next week, Chris Ryan and I return to build a new subgenre on this show. That subgenre is called Garbage Revenge, a.k.a. Trash Justice. And we'll be talking about the new Jeremy Saulnier film, Rebel Ridge. We'll see you then.